They called her a monster, the Austrian spy who laughed while her people starved, the woman who supposedly uttered those infamous, cruel words, "Let them eat cake." History wants you to hate her. It wants you to see a villain draped in diamonds, ignoring the screams outside her palace walls, caring only for her next extravagant gown. But if you strip away the propaganda, if you look past the towering wigs and the layers of impossibly expensive silk, you don't find a monster. You find a lonely, terrified 14-year-old girl, locked in the most expensive golden cage on earth, just waiting for the lock to break. Forget what the history books told you. This is the story of the woman behind the scandal and the broken heart hidden beneath the jewels. Imagine being 14 years old. You were stripped of everything familiar, your clothes, your friends, even your beloved dog, and sent to a foreign land where everyone views you with suspicion. This was Marie's reality the moment she crossed the border into France to marry the future king, a boy she had never met. She was an outsider, an Autrichienne, Austrian bitch, trapped in the rigid, suffocating theater of Versailles. When she arrived at Versailles, she entered a world that smelled overwhelmingly of ancient dust, masked by heavy, cloying perfumes of iris, civet, and orange blossom. It was a palace of 1,000 eyes. Every moment of her life, from the moment she woke up to the moment she went to sleep, was a public ceremony performed before hundreds of judging courtiers. There was no privacy. There was only performance. So, how does a lonely teenage girl survive a world that despises her? She builds a fortress of beauty. If they were going to stare at her, she decided, she would give them something spectacular to look at. She didn't just wear clothes, she weaponized them against her critics. She used fashion as armor. She spent fortunes France didn't have, creating an image of untouchable glamour. Think of wigs that defied gravity, 3 feet high, decorated with miniature ships, singing birds, and fresh garden flowers that had to be kept alive with hidden vials of water hidden in the hair. Think of dresses so wide she had to turn sideways to walk through doorways, covered with thousands of real pearls and diamonds that sparkled under the candlelight like captured stars. She bathed in water scented with crushed almonds and washed her face with sweet-smelling pastes imported from Italy. She popularized the scent of tuberose, a rich, heady floral fragrance that announced her presence before she even entered a room. This obsession with luxury wasn't just frivolity, darling. It was a desperate cry for control in a life where she had none. Every diamond was a brick in the wall she built around her heart. But the gold wore thin. Beneath the layers of silk, there was a profound emptiness. Her marriage to Louis was complicated. He was awkward, shy, and preferred hunting and locksmithing to spending time with his vibrant young wife. For 7 long, humiliating years, the royal marriage was unconsummated. Imagine the pressure. The entire kingdom was waiting for an heir, and the blame fell entirely on Marie. She was mocked in cruel pamphlets distributed in the streets of Paris. She was whispered about in the corridors of her own palace. She was the Queen of France, yet she felt like a failure as a woman. She was desperate for affection, starving for a genuine connection in a palace full of vipers. So she created her own world to escape the pain. She retreated to the Petit Trianon, a smaller palace on the grounds of Versailles that Louis gifted her. It became her sanctuary, a place where the strict rules of court etiquette were banished. There, she didn't have to be a queen. She could pretend to be a simple country girl. She traded her heavy brocades for soft, flowing white muslin dresses tied with simple sashes. a scandalous fashion choice that critics said looked like she was wearing her underwear in public. She played at being a milkmaid in a perfect, fake village she had built, milking perfumed cows into porcelain buckets. It was a fantasy life, a desperate attempt to find innocence in a corrupt world. But this innocent escape was twisted by her enemies into something sinister. Rumors swirled of wild, debauched parties at Trianon, of forbidden romances and secret lovers. And perhaps some of it was true. The most persistent whisper was her intense connection with the handsome Swedish count, Axel von Fersen. Whether it was a physical affair or just a desperate, passionate emotional entanglement, Fersen was the only man who seemed to see Marie, the woman, not the queen. He was her intellectual equal, her confidant, her escape. In a life defined by duty and performance, that secret, forbidden happiness was the most dangerous scandal of all. It proved she had a heart that the crown couldn't control. While Marie played in her gardens and drowned her sorrows in diamonds, the real world outside the palace gates was burning. The price of bread skyrocketed. The taxes crushed the poor. The anger of the people, whipped up by revolutionary fervor, needed a target. And who better than the foreign queen with her 3-foot wigs and her legendary extravagance? The whispers turned into shouts, and the shouts turned into a revolution. The gilded gates of Versailles couldn't hold back the tide of history. The mob came for her. The royal family was dragged from their palace, imprisoned in Paris, stripped of their silks and jewels, left only with each other in the cold, imposing temple tower. The true tragedy of Marie Antoinette wasn't the loss of her crown or her wealth. It was the systematic breaking of her heart. The revolutionaries knew the only way to truly destroy the proud queen was through her children. The most agonizing moment of her life wasn't her own trial. It was the day the guards came to the prison tower and tore her young son, the Dauphin, from her arms. They forced her to sign false accusations against him, unspeakable things, just to survive another day. That was the moment Marie Antoinette truly died. She spent her final months in a damp, dark cell in the Conciergerie prison, known as the antechamber to the guillotine. Her famous golden hair, once adorned with ships and feathers, turned stark white overnight from grief and terror. Her beauty faded, leaving only the raw bone structure of a woman who had endured the unendurable. On the day of her execution, she was paraded through the streets of Paris in an open cart, enduring the jeers and insults of the crowd she had once tried so hard to impress. Yet she sat with her back straight, retaining the regal bearing of a Habsburg archduchess to the very end. When she climbed the scaffold to face the guillotine, she accidentally stepped on the executioner's foot. In that final, terrifying moment, her last words weren't a curse on France or a plea for mercy. She simply turned to him and whispered, "Pardon me, sir, I meant not to do it." A final act of politeness, a last shred of dignity from a woman who, for all her faults, was never really allowed to be just human. She was a pawn, a fashion icon, a scapegoat, and finally, a tragic mother. And perhaps that is the most scandalous truth of all.